Good morning. The Rambam of today, Hilchas Maase Korbonos. We're going to look at two halachas at the end of Perek Beis, halacha Yudalid and halacha Tesvav, that are continuing one from the other. The Rambam says, "Kol shiurei hanesochim ha'amurim b'sefer Yecheskel." So I want to just give a bit of an introduction. This is a parsha in Yecheskel that is hard to understand because it doesn't fit the Torah's halachas of Nesach. The Gemara in Menachos, Daf Mem Hey, says, "Am Rabbi Yechanan, parsha zu Eliyahu asur l'darsha." Let's not get involved. It's beyond us. We'll leave it to Eliyahu. However, Rashi goes on to explain it, and the Rambam follows Rashi's basic explanation. If he follows it totally or mostly, but that's a different discussion, and I don't think we're going to get into that, but that is the basics of what's going on here. Nevertheless, what is the halal? So those psukim have different shiur. So he says all those the Korbonos, the Sidrei Avei, the Aksum Sham, they're not regular. Kula Miluyim. They all fall under the heading of Miluyim. They ain't noyagin l'dayos, and they are not relevant for the generations. Elahanovi Tziva Upiresh, he commanded and he explained, Kate said, "You makrivim, listen to this, Hamiluyim, im Chanukah Samizbeach, bimei Hamelach HaMashiach Keshivana Beis Hashbayis." The Navi was telling us what's going to be when the Mizbeach, when they're going to bring the Miluyim with Chanukah Samizbeach. So one thing we see clearly, Miluyim associates with Chanukah Samizbeach. Halacha Tesvav, we will see that again. Keshem shehekrivu hanesiim b'Chanukah Samizbeach. Dvorim she'ein k'moison b'beis. Just like in the original Chanukah Samizbeach, they Nesiim brought Korbonos that were not the whole parshas Nasai, right? And not the whole parshas Nasai, the whole second half of parshas Nasai, which we're going to be laying Chanukah, is saying V'krivai b'Shabbos, and they krivu b'Shabbos. They were makriv also on Shabbos, because if you have 12 shatim, so in every 12 days there's going to be a Shabbos. Kach hanosi makriv Chanukosai b'Shabbos lost. So to the nasi is going to bring lost, and they're going to bring on Shabbos too. Kashmir Furisha, as it says there, indicated that it'll be on Shabbos also. There was also Korbonos in Ezra's time that didn't fit the narrative of Korbonos in the Torah. So he says, they came back from captivity. And again, he stresses, they're not for future generations. But they are divrei Torah. Shepirash, that we explained, as they've been copied, brought from Moshe Rabbeinu. They are divrei Torah. Now that this is Miluyim. Interesting lashon, divrei Torah. So the question arises that, and just to note that Rashi doesn't learn even that the loss of love will be anything. Rashi learns it's only talking about Bimei Ezra and the time of the Mishkan. And the Mishnah asks, where did the Rambam get that it's going loss of love? Okay, so the other Rishonim do learn that that's what it means. So the Rabbi Moshe learned like that. So that, and there's rayas, the Achronim give rayas that it means like that. So there's nothing to it. However, the Yerushalmi asks the question: why do we even talk about Miluyim in the Mishnah and Gemara? Not relevant. It's not relevant. Take it out. Not take it out of the Torah. They got a whole lot of stuff in the Torah if you're not going on that. But why are we discussing the Mishnah? Ya'akru oisem in the Mishnah, yes. Rabbi Yaina in Mishal. The answer is they got a certain question to let you know what that means. What's the question? What's the answer? We'll deal with that. Okay. Now the Rambam obviously stresses many times over, twice in those two halachas, that these are not mitzvahs and na'egel adeiros. In Sefer mitzvahs, as we know, there's 14 shroshim before the actual mitzvahs that the Rambam mentions. In the Sheirish Hashlishi, he says this rule: Ein roi limnas mitzvah shein na'egel adeiros, and he says the Bahag does, and he argues on him, and he says it can't be, because if you had, you'll have thousands of mitzvahs or hundreds of mitzvahs more, because you have to add miluyim, which has mitzvahs, asay, lois, asay, all. And one of them is he mentions miluyim. Obviously, we don't mention mitzvahs that are not the deis. The Ramban over there argues on the Rambam, and he says, "I'm sorry, this is a mitzvah that is the deis, because it's going to happen. It happened by Ezra. It's going to happen by some Mashiach. So how do you say not theirs?" So we end up with a machlekes. Obviously, the Rambam holds it's not a mitzvah, everything is theirs. The Ramban holds it is. But the Rambam himself says it's nehegis. It's going to be in the time of Ezra. It's going to be in the time of the Maase Mashiach. So why is it not nehegis of theirs? Why would you call that not nehegis of theirs? He himself says it's going to happen, and the Navi says it's going to happen. There is Sameach asks on the Rambam. Now I don't know where he gets his call, but he obviously I'll defer to his knowledge of him that he has some that he knows. He says that this that the Navi can tell us what's going to be something that's Hayrah Shah, because that's what it is. It's a Hayrah Shah to bring these miluyim. How could he tell us something down the future? Hayrah Shah is at that moment when the issue comes up. But to tell you that when Mashiach comes is going to be Hayrah Shah, that's like a little out of the range of what our Navi can do. It makes sense because the word Hayrah Shah means it's a responsive act, a responsive halacha. So it's responding to a crisis. But there's no crisis. How can you make it? I'm telling you there's got to be a crisis, and I'm telling you, I'm good. You don't do that. The Brisker Rav asked somebody kasha, and others asked it too, but I couldn't find. I saw it asked, then I couldn't find it. The only person I found it by was the Brisker Rav. That he asks, we know there's a big shaila. When they were Makdish the Beis Hamikdash, is it temporary during the time when the Mikdash is standing, or when the Yidden are in Eretz Yisrael, or is it Kitcher Shaita, Kitcher Loss and Love it? And the Rambam paskins that Kedusha Rishayna is Kitcher Lishaita. Ula should love it. Right, that's what he said. So if that's the case, what do you need miluyim? Miluyim is because there's something missing. You have to be magdish, but you don't do magdish. You don't have to be mechanech anything. The Bishkar says it has nothing to do with mechanech. But the Rambam says it's for Chanukah Samizbeya. Okay, it's not so sure, but it's important to understand. Okay. So let's try to see what we can do over there. Perhaps let's take a look at the Rambam Hilchas Beis Hamikdash. Rambam says, "What's the purpose of the Beis Hamikdash?" We learned it. This is Esel Lasses Bayis Hashem Muchan liyas makrivim by hakabanas. We know the famous machlekes, the Rambam, Ramban. There's so many sikhs about it, that whether it's because of kabanas or because of shechina, and the Rambam clearly says that the main thing is kabanas. And then the Rambam goes and gives us what would seem a history course. Mishkan, Shiloi, Noiv, and Givain, and then Beis Hamikdash. And that, Kivan Shenivna Hamikdash B'Yishlayim, Nesser Kol Kaiser Luke Rice, and Rice Hashem Alahaker from Carbon. And then he writes a line, Ve'ein Sham Bayis, L'doirei HaDoireis, Ela B'Yishlayim Alach. That's the only place where there's a house. And he brings the pasuk, Vayem David Zeh, Beis Hashem Alekim V'Zeh Mizbach Leil Yisrael, Zeis V'Nichos Yadah. This is it. This is it. Okay, it's not it. It's destroyed. You can have other ones. Why is this it? Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Allah Vav there writes Oisin the Migdash Kalim. In the Migdash, which is made for bringing kabbanas, you make Kalim. And what's the first Kali he mentions? Mizbeach la'oilo l'shar kabbanas, and a kevesh to walk up, and kiyar, kanai, and then goes on, and Mizbeach l'kteiras, v'neiras, shulchans, all the whole list. Now, I'm not going to get into the issue, but first of all, let's try to understand why is he telling us all these different historical events that Rebbe asks in many cases, and then a number of times over. The Rambam say for halachas, why is he doing this? And why the hava? What happened? What do we care? And Rebbe answers various different answers to it. I'm going to talk about one of them soon, but it's going to come up. There are various answers. But nevertheless, what comes out clearly from the Rambam is that there's one mitzvah, to have a mishkan, to have a mokim muchen l'kabanas. That's the mitzvah. Now, obviously, there are other things that the Beis Hamikdash serves, but that's the mitzvah. And that mitzvah can be done in many, many different ways. Can be done in many different ways. Done through a mishkan, through noi, shiloi, noi, given, and Beis Halama. But that's the right mitzvah. Mitzvah is to have a bias mucha l'kabanas. Now, despite the fact that the karbanos is what it's all about, some another mizbeach finds a strange place as a keli, not as the main part. So there's another sikha, which I already have discussed once and at length and written about, is the Rambam. Without we'd have to learn very Beis, where the Rambam talks about the mizbeach, and I think there's a share on that on this series, and it's not for now. But there says there's two dinim mizbeach, but bottom line, and Barry Gal was din and Barry Beis is din. But the bottom line is that mizbeach is a central thing, but yet it's one of the Klei Hamikdash. Okay. Now let's analyze a little further. So now, what are miluyim? Miluyim are to make the mizbeach. That's what miluyim make the mizbeach. Okay. Now, in Hilchis, in our halachas, Perik Yutas Halacha Tesvav, a little later, is where the Rambam says that if somebody shechts kachim is manaseh and he brings them out of Azara, he is chayiv. Why? Because you could have brought him in the Beis Hamikdash. And the Rambam writes the following lashon: Sharei muter lahakriv ava b'shem bayis. They should kedusha yasheni kitchen l'shayt and kitchen l'saleh, which we discussed earlier. Taisus Yuma asks on this halacha in the Gemara, where's the mizbeach? Where's the mizbeach? You can bring without a bias, but what do you need a mizbeach? So Taisus gives two answers. One of them is the Mizbeach. He built the Mizbeach. And that's the general understanding of the Rambam is talking that there is a Mizbeach. The Rambam in Perek Beis says that Midas HaMizbeach U'Chuvanais Harbe, that there's a special Utzirasa Yedua Ishme Ish, and everything has a certain distinct setup. So how is he building a Mizbeach? But at the same time, you look over there, Perek Beis, Allah he writes, they're not Ma'akiv. The only thing that's Ma'akiv is Kranais, you say Ribuai, and that's it. But everything else, Midas Arka, Midas Rachba, Midas Kamasa, and Ma'akiv. The little sizes and the lengths and the height, no, Ma'akiv as long as it is 3 amas by 3 amas, as it was in the Midbar. So it would seem, just to get to the bottom line, nowadays we can bring kabbalas. Nowadays we can build a mizbeach. Now there is no doubt in my mind, and I can't say there's no doubt, but there's very little doubt in my mind, that if we were to build our own mizbeach without a Beis Hamikdash, there's no union of Chanukas on mizbeach with miluyim, because it's not the mizbeach. This is just our version of an altar to bring a carbon, but that's it. It's not a chelik of a Beis Hamikdash. It's not kli abayis that would require Chanukas on mizbeach, as we said before, that mizbeach is one of the kli hamikdash. So if so, it's very good what the Rambam says. We don't need miluyim. Since kedusha shana kitchel shaita kitchel asan lavai, nakiv and avishem bites, and you can build a mizbeach. So finished. There is no, you cannot tell me that I must have miluyim. I can bring a midbar. That is a beautiful discussion. Whether there is a chiyuv b'zman hazeh to bring karbanos. And I got to go into another shaila, which was a shaila about the Korban Pesach and the time when we could. We're talking about, should there be the opportunity to bring a carbon today? And all conditions would be met. No Beis Hamikdash yet. But we build our own mizbeach. Are we required to bring a carbon? So first of all, the Rambam's lashon muter, shai muter lahakriv av b'shem bayis, indicates no. That's what many bring rise. The chinuch says clearly not. You're not required. It's just okay. However, others want to claim that there is a chiyuv in Zman Hazeh, and there was a big shailus about these things. But even if there is, says the Guras Hari, that even the Turevin, he says that even if there is a chiyuv to bring kabbalas, there's no chiyuv to build a mizbeach. So you can't say that there's a chiyuv to bring kabbalas. So that's just the point where there's even if there's a chiyuv, which leads us to another shaila. What do we need a Beis Hamikdash for? We can bring kabbalas. Bias, lack of carbon. The answer is because there's no chiyuv. And if you would like, in Rabbi Galitsky has a sefer Maase Mashiach, Perek Yitches. He goes through a lot of this and really does a beautiful job, as he does in many of us in all the stuff. It's really nice to see what he writes there. So if you have time, you can go look at it back. Anyway, based on that, we understand what the Rambam says. I want to go a step further. That step could cause problems, but it's a fact that I saw it. Kiryas Sefer, which is one of the Sfarim of the Rambam, but very, very, you say this, and interesting to see how he writes things. He's very often puts in a point, nakuda, that just changes the insight. So he writes on this halacha that kedusha shaynet kitchel shaitim kitchel asalavai that we mentioned before, and he brings exactly the lashon Rambam that if you brought a carbon today chayiv, And he writes why, and then he adds, V'havi lo, Yerushalayim, Beis Hamikdash, B'shas Yisrael Bomas. Yerushalayim is Beis Hamikdash. Now, why write those words? Yerushalayim, V'havi lo, B'shas Yisrael Bomas, because there's still the opportunity to bring a curve. It would seem from him that he understood in the Rambam that it's not just the place is holy for Korbonos. It's called, there is a base up here. There is that place. Where does the word base up here? Okay. As we know, the Gemara says that Yankiv koreloi base. Ain't that base Hashem? It's a base up here. That's a bias. A bias doesn't have to have an actual house. It's a bias here. No, it's a house. It's a place where there's a bias. Oh, so according to him, it's really the actual base. And that's shot in the Rambam maybe when he says that this is when he brings the pasuk with Zeb base Hashem Alikim. This is it. This place is now the base Hashem. It remains base up here. So why do we need a base of That's not cash perfect. Why do you need a base of You need a base for all the other things that you can't do. But mitzad Korbonos, base, muchal the Korbonos, yeah. Now, the Rebbe says a word in Chelik Chafal that the Oren being hidden in the Maase Korbonos means that the Beis Hamikdash still has a stand, which fits with what we're talking about, but it's that's even stronger. That makes it into an actual house. Akapanim. So, based on that, we can answer our Smech's question. And he says similar, but I don't know why he goes into the way he goes, but the idea is the same, similar. That the Navi is not telling us anything new. He's telling us, if you're gonna need Mizbeach, you're gonna be able to do this is what you'll do. Because it's not necessary. Lashon Rambam, it's not Torah. It's not Torah. That's what Rambam means the Lashon. Torah is those things that are part of requirements. That's not a requirement. Even the Navi's telling you, he's telling you got to build a mission. This is what you'll do to make it work. And not Kvar Hoya. Kvar Hoya is important. That's what the Rambam says. I'm just telling you, this is the way it works. When you build a Mishkan, now you can tell you there's a million building Mizbeach. And tell you that you're building a new Beis Hamikdash. So as part of that, just know this is the system. There's a system. When you build a Mizbeach, this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. The Yishalmi, on the other hand, what's the Yishalmi asking? Take it out. Because the Yishalmi says, similar to what the Gemara says in Yuma, Keitza del Bisham, how did they dress the Kahanim? So this might have a habit. So the Gemara says, but how are they going to do it? Last Lave, when Aaron and Bonav come. And my Shimam, you'll find out. In other words, it's not irrelevant. I think, yeah. It's not a Seder in Korbonos, it's a Seder in Mizbeach. Why do we need no Korbonos? Because as the Rebbe says, and the Farshim explained, because learning about Korbonos is part of Binyan Hamikdash and Kolam Leibed Korbonos, Kila Hikrivai. But here there's no Indian of Akrovas, the Indian of Hechshem is Be'ach. So when you lead it, you'll do it. What do we need to know about it? That's it. I think the Rambam comes out very, very nice with what we're saying. That the Nekudas Hadavar is that you don't really this Mizbeach is not a part of it's a nevuah about loss of love, but we have everything without that. And therefore the Miluyim are not really part of a necessity. They're part of an overall strategy that's going to be Lasaloi for the sake of other things, but not the main mitzvah even. It's not even the game to the main mitzvah. Main mitzvah, Bayis, Lashem, Lakav, Kabbanis, we can do that without. We can do that without. Yeah, we can do a lot of other things. Can't have the beautiful, all the great mitzvahs that come along on the side. Good. There's going to be a mini mitzvah English. But that's not mitzvah l'deris. That goes along with a side point. In order to have a mizbeach working, you're going to want a real big mizbeach with all the midas and part of it. But that's part of the binyan mitzvah English. We'll get you one. We'll do the things we need, and those are going to be loot. But that's not Torah. Torah is what's necessary and what's part of the mitzvahs. Okay, and may we all be blessed with seeing the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi B'Karav Mamish.